superintend the publication of his Christian Directory, a most useful and happy work which in my opinion has converted to God more souls than it contains pages. The heretics themselves have known how to appreciate it, as appears from a recent edition thereof, published by one of their ministers, who sought to claim the glory of so important a work. To Father Persons, then, did I communicate my vocation and my desire of joining the society. But as I was not yet strong nor fit to continue my studies, and moreover, as I had some property to dispose of and arrangements to make in England, he advised me to return thither, so as to recruit my health by breathing my native air, and at the same time to free myself from every obstacle which might prevent or delay me in my pursuit of perfection and the religious life. I accordingly went home, and after settling my affairs, set out on my return in about a year, this time, however, without having asked for a licence, for I had no hope of obtaining it, as I did not venture to communicate my plans to my parents. I embarked then with some other Catholics, and after having been kept 5 days at sea by contrary winds, we were forced to put in at the port of Dover. On arriving thither, we were all seized by the custom-house officers and forwarded to London, in custody. My companions were imprisoned on a warrant of the Queen's Privy Council. For my own part, though I declared myself a Catholic and refused to attend their worship, I escaped imprisonment at that time, as there were some of the council that were friendly to my family, and had procured me the licence to travel abroad on the former occasion. They entertained, it would seem, some hopes of perverting me in course of time, so I was sent to my maternal uncle's, a Protestant, to be kept in his custody, and, if possible, to be perverted. He, after 3 months, sought to obtain my full liberty both by bribes and begging, but being asked whether I had gone to church, as they call it, he was obliged to acknowledge that he could never bring me to do so. Thereupon the council sent me with a letter to the pseudo-bishop of London, who, having read it, asked whether I would allow him to confer with me on religious matters. I replied that as I doubted of nothing, I had rather decline. "You must, in that case," answered he, "remain here in custody." I replied that in this I was obliged to acquiesce, through force and the command of the government. He treated me with kindness, with a view perhaps of thus drawing me over. But he ordered his chaplain's bed to be brought into my chamber. At first I repeatedly declared my determination not to enter into any dispute with this man on matters of faith, as to which my mind was settled, nor to receive religious instruction from him. But as he ceased not pouring forth abuse and blasphemy against the saints in heaven and against our Holy Mother the Church, I was forced to defend the truth, and then almost the whole night was spent in disputing. I soon discovered that in him at least God's truth had no very formidable adversary. After 2 days, as they saw my case was hopeless, they sent me back to the council with letters of recommendation, forsooth, for the so-called bishop told me that he had greatly striven in my favour, and that he had great hopes of my being set at large. It was, however, a Uriah's letter that I carried, for no sooner had the council read it than they ordered me to be imprisoned until I had learnt to be a loyal subject. For they hold him a bad subject who will not subject himself to their heresies and their sacrilegious worship. Being committed to the Marshalsea prison, I found there numbers of Catholics and many priests awaiting judgment of death with the greatest joy. In this school of Christ I was detained from the beginning of one Lent to the end of the following, not without abundant consolation of mind and good opportunity for study. We were twice during this interval dragged before the courts, not to be tried for our lives, but to be fined according to the law against recusants. I was condemned to pay 2,000 florins, £200. Once on my return from the court, which was in the country, some 6 miles out of London, I got leave to go and visit some friends, having pledged my word to return to the Marshalsea that night. I went then to visit a prisoner detained in that horrible dungeon called Bridewell, as I had heard that he was sick. His story deserves notice. He had formerly lived in Father Campion's service, and on account of some words he had let fall in praise of Father Campion, he was arrested and detained a long time in the Marshalsea. On my arrival there, I saw him laden with heavy fetters on his legs, besides which he wore a very rough hair-shirt. He was most lowly and meek, and full of charity. I happened one day to see a turnkey strike him repeatedly without the servant of God.